What are the pros and cons of living in the Salt Lake City, Utah area or the Wasatch Front? Hi, this is Melissa Ballman with Utah Homes by Melissa and Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices. We're going to talk today about the pros and cons of living in Utah. And I'll tell you, I'm not actually originally from Utah, so you're going to hear from somebody who has lived here for 19 years but was not born and raised here. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel below and hit the bell. That way you're alerted each week on Fridays when I drop my new videos. So let's jump into it. Utah is a really cool place. I actually moved here from San Diego, California, and didn't know a single person. I had no family here, no friends, and I haven't looked back ever since. So some of the things you will see could be positive or negative, a pro or a con of living in Salt Lake City, depending on the type of person that you are. Salt Lake City is also sometimes called Small Lake City, and that's because it just seems like in some roundabout way you always know somebody. People in Utah are very friendly and I find are always really willing to help out and give back to people, even when they don't know them. My family was actually up hunting one day, ran across some strangers that helped them out while they were hunting. Turns out I actually used to work with the guy's wife, and they've just become friends. And no kidding, a year and a half, 2 years later, my husband and him still text each other, and they met on a mountain. So that's how friendly people are in this area. So let's jump into some of the pros of living in Salt Lake City, Utah area. Number one is safety. In 2019, Salt Lake City was actually ranked the 78th safest city to be in. So you definitely have that peace of mind when you are in Salt Lake City. I often say when I leave, like, oh, I'm not in the Utah bubble anymore, because there's just a different feel here and you don't feel so uptight letting things go a little bit and like leaving your garage door open for a little while and things like that. Okay, number two, this is a big one, recreational activities and outdoor activities. If you didn't know, Utah has 5 national parks in the state. That's the most of any other state in the country. And the most you're gonna drive if you're in the Salt Lake City metro area to get to a national park is maybe 6 hours. It's not uncommon to be about a 4-hour drive from most national parks in Utah. We have, I don't even know how much of national forest. We have reservoirs so you can swim, boat, kayak, whatever, fishing, hunting, dirt bike riding, dunes, you name it, you can literally do it here in Utah. Just in Draper alone, Draper City, which is about 20 minutes south of Salt Lake City, there are hundreds of miles of trails for hiking, mountain biking. You can go paragliding in Draper, hang gliding. Literally, aside from the ocean, I do more outdoors in Utah than I ever did in California. Let's talk weather. We have 4 seasons in Utah, which I absolutely love. Coming from San Diego, I'd never experienced winter, so I was a little bit concerned about that. And I can tell you, we are high desert in Utah. So you kind of think of Utah as Las Vegas, but higher elevation and not quite as hot as that in the summertime. We do in the summertime sometimes hit 100, 105 degrees. But that's not consistent like you would see like in Vegas or Arizona, places like that. And we don't have the humidity that you find in the Midwest and back east. So I love that part of it. But as far as winters go, it's not really as bad as you think. I can say, looking at the news, the East Coast, New York, Massachusetts, all of those, they get way more snow than we get in Utah. It's not uncommon for it to snow overnight and it be like a light dusting when you wake up in the morning, or if you do get a more significant snowstorm, you typically have the roads cleared and sun shining by noon most days on storms. Now in 2019, or it might have been the first part of January of 2020, I don't remember, but we had the largest snowstorm in 17 years on record, and we got about 17 to 20 inches of snow in the course of 2 days. So just keep that in mind. It's not the dreaded snowy weather that you often think about. Next, Salt Lake City actually is one of the major travel hubs in the United States for airports. That's right, most people don't realize it, but it's very easy to get in and out of Salt Lake City because one of the major US carriers, this is one of their international hubs. So whether you're looking to stay domestic or international, you have tons of flight options and times coming out of Salt Lake City. And last of the pros we're going to talk about is cost of living. Now, generally speaking, in Utah, things cost less money. And we're going to talk about the housing market. So I'm not talking about housing right now, but I'm talking like fuel, internet, just the things that you need every single day, generally speaking, are going to be less expensive than you find in other parts of the country. Now, if you're maybe coming from Iowa or, somewhere in the Midwest that's small, you may not see that. But if you're definitely coming from Washington, California, East Coast, you are going to find that things are generally less expensive to live in Utah. So let's jump over to some of the cons of living in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. Number one, the drivers. Driving here, there are terrible, terrible drivers. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I would say hands down, drivers in Salt Lake City, Utah, compared to many other places I've gone in the nation, even Northern California, San Diego, Michigan, I've been all over the country, and I can tell you Salt Lake area is in a league of their own with terrible drivers. So just be prepared for that. Number two con for living in the Salt Lake City, Utah area is home prices and the population are going up. That's right. More and more people are moving from California to Utah and moving from Texas to Utah and all different parts of the country and moving to Utah, especially with all those tech jobs coming into the area. So as the population is growing, we are experiencing a housing shortage in Utah and prices are going way up. We've been in a seller's market for years now just because of the population growth and the housing that we are needing to support that increase. And then there's the dreaded winter inversion that you have to experience at least a few times every single winter. So if you've never been to Salt Lake City, I often think of it as a bowl. We have mountains on each side of us, and it traps all the pollutants in the air. So it's not super easy for the pollution to get out of the Salt Lake City Valley area. So if you think about a bowl and all those particles, and it's just disgusting. It doesn't happen every day, but when we get it, it can be pretty bad for a few days to even a couple of weeks if it's bad. And it's kind of gloomy looking and cloudy gray style, but we have beautiful winter days, but we also have the inversion. Another con about living in all of Utah, not just the Salt Lake City area, is the liquor laws. Now, you can get used to them. They're not terrible anymore. They've come a long way since I moved here in 2002 to where they are in 2020, but we still have state-run liquor stores for your hard alcohol. And I go into that on another video, 10 things to know about moving to Utah. So check that out if you want to know more specifics about the liquor laws, but they can take a little bit to get used to. And finally, my last con, and it's really not a huge deal unless you're coming from New York City, and that's the mass transit system. It's getting better in Utah and they've really expanded it and you can get a good amount of places, but it's nowhere like what you would find in New York and Boston and those types of places. If you're thinking of moving to Utah, you do need to have your own vehicle to get around. You just won't be able to enjoy the state even if you live super close to where you work. You want to get out and explore some of the beauty that is here in Utah. So you'll definitely need your own car. So if you're thinking about moving to Salt Lake City, Utah area, make sure you reach out to me. I'd love to help you, even if you just have questions about the areas and you're looking to rent for a little while and you just have some general questions, reach out to me. I'm here to help. Or you can drop a comment below and I'll make sure to get back to you. Have a great day.